Hi there, I'm Amy and welcome back to another Sims 4 speed build. Today I'm decorating a modern house, which is more industrial inspired, and I got the reference picture from Pinterest, so hopefully you like it. I also wanted to make sure to use the new artist studio kit in this, so there is a space for any up-and-coming artists if you wanted to download the build. I actually really like industrial decor, and I don't think I've ever done an industrial build on my channel before, so hopefully it's something different and you enjoy the video. As always as well, the build is on the Sims 4 gallery just under my EA ID, which is AWayfaringFrog, so you can grab it there if you wanted to play in the house. And speaking of the new kit, I absolutely love it. I thought all of the items in it were really fun. I did start building this before I got the kit though, so you'll find the room build for the artist part a lot later on in the video, but otherwise I managed to incorporate a lot of the industrial loft kit in, which is another kit that I actually really enjoy. As I mentioned, I really like industrial decor, so I thought that kit was great when it came out, even with all of the drama around the window that they used in the advertisements for it. So anyway, for the structure, it's quite basic in style. It's just a bit of a brick house, but I think it's quite effective and ends up looking really cute. I did also start building this on the Cottage am Sea lot, which is from Windenburg. It's just that little island. Not to be confused with the big island that's in that world. This one's just on the main part of Windenburg, but it seems a bit like it's cut off from the rest of the area. It's a really cute lot to build on, and I think this is the second time now I've tried to build here, but I do end up moving it. It ends up being on the Newcrest world on a 20 by 15 lot instead, just because it ended up being quite small here, and the way I placed the front door just didn't really leave much space for a back garden and also a pathway from the open section that's off the lot. So I just wanted to move it, and I think it looks a bit better in Newcrest, to be honest, since it's a bit more modern, I suppose. It also ends up being a one-bedroom house with an office and then the artist's room. So the artist's room is going to be this little section off to the right, which is, I've just put windows from the greenhouse Haven kit around there. So there's a big bright space for you to do your artwork in that room, was the idea. But for the office, which is upstairs, you could change that into a small little bedroom if you wanted to sort of expand a family in this household. But while I was building, I kind of had it in mind that this was for two single Sims who didn't want to start a family. Or rather, two Sims who are a couple who didn't want to start a family. There is only one double bed in it, so they couldn't be two single Sims in that sense. And so I thought one of the Sims would end up using the office a bit more and the other was the artist of the two. So they both have their own little spaces to do their work, respectively. What are your thoughts on the art kit, by the way? Have any of you looked into it or bought it yet? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on it. I personally really do love it, and I especially like that it comes with an extra woodworking table. So that is a base game skill, I believe. I sometimes mix it up with flower arranging, but I think that's why they put this one in the kit, because it's already base game. So that's just so useful. I really like having the woodworking skill, but the color swatches on the actual woodworking table from base game is just not ideal, to be honest. It doesn't suit every build. So it's really nice that we've got a much more modern looking one, and then it's quite fun how you can choose to have a more worn version on that due to the swatches it's got. I don't end up using that in this build, so I probably shouldn't be talking about it so much, but it's probably the item I'm most excited about. But again, as I mentioned, this build is primarily for an artist, so I didn't include that in here, and there wasn't a lot of space in that extra room because I really wanted to use the other pieces from the kit. But anyway, I've just scooched the build around on this lot, and it's around now that I'm starting to work out that I don't have a lot of space to be able to have a back garden, but also a walkway into the front of the building. So that probably will switch quite soon. But I do end up having a little back garden on the lot it ends up being on. I think it's the one called Oak Alcove, but it could go on either of the 20 by 15 lots in any of the worlds. But specifically this one does end up being in Newcrest, as I mentioned. There is also a lot of brick. I kind of liked the idea of having the brick extend onto the pathways, and I couldn't find a pathing that I liked which worked with the build but wasn't brick, so I ended up keeping that across, including the patio and the back garden. I tried to make a lot of green spaces to help blend that in though, so it didn't look too monotonous, but you'll have to let me know if you think I achieved that and if it looks alright to you. I ended up doing quite structured little planter areas around the space and just used a few of the bushes, I think mostly just from base game, around. I didn't want there to be too many flowers in the space. It just felt a bit more like an industrial vibe if it was mostly just the green plants. So that's what I opted for instead. For the windows as well, aside from the ones on that little bump out to the right side where I mentioned the artist room will go, I used a lot of the Lovestruck kit, or a lot of the Lovestruck expansion pack. Pretty much just exclusively those two windows. And then there's a small one that I put in the eaves of a couple of the roofs. So I can't remember where that's from. It might be base game, but those are the only windows that I used here. I haven't actually used these particular Lovestruck windows that much yet. I used them in a couple of room builds where I played around with the animal print items, but otherwise I haven't actually incorporated them into a full build, so that was really fun to be able to do. And you can just about see now that the back garden is very brick, but I think it still works, so you'll have to let me know whether you agree or if you think I should have used a different path tile at all. There are also the new pathing tiles. Again, I started building this before the update and then the kits came out, so I didn't quite have access to all of the new items and swatches that came as part of that. But partway through the build, I think when I start decorating the upstairs, I did that on a separate day to when I started the build, so I did have that update at that point. But otherwise I didn't think to go back to potentially edit the back garden with those items, so it is really great that we've got some new terrain paints though. I'm quite excited to try those out. I haven't really looked at them much yet. I've just seen them in reviews from other Sims tubers. So that will be fun to try out. Terrain paints are always great for a starter build since they don't cost anything, so I really like them for that. It also makes it so much easier to blend the pathing, I find. So if you didn't want it to look so stark against the grass, I really do like terrain tools for that. And the back garden of this build is fairly simple. I just included a little outdoor space to eat for your Sims with an umbrella, and then the bins are outside as well as a barbecue. I do end up putting the pizza oven as well. While I was playtesting actually, that sat on fire, so I know there was a bit of a bug where that pizza oven just kept setting on fire, so I'm not so sure it's been fixed. That is the first time it's ever happened to me though, believe it or not, but that does end up being out there, so use at your own risk. And then the little planter pots which I included, I just end up adding some herbs into those, so there's a bit of a herb garden for your Sims if you wanted. Onto the interior then, I just placed down some placement furniture so that I had an idea of where to put everything, but I end up putting the dining table just in front of this back door area. I tried to incorporate quite a few colours into this. I feel like whenever I have done an industrial build in the past, which isn't on YouTube, I end up going for quite a lot of just dark monotone colours, lots of woods and blacks. I do like how it looks, but I wanted to try and branch off and do something a bit different here. So I tried to include quite a bit of colour, so there's splashes of blue, green and red throughout the space. And then again, because it's for an artist, I thought that was a much better choice since, I don't know, I just relate artistry to being colourful for some reason. Oh, and in the kitchen, I used the base game counters, the really industrial looking ones, and then I mixed a few pieces from the Home Chef Hustle game pack. Nope, not a game pack, a stuff pack. I'll eventually get that right, I swear I say it wrong every time. But the problem with the base game counters was they had the upstands along the back, and I really wanted to use the Home Chef Hustle oven, but I realised that the big base game mirror actually covers that quite well, so there isn't a funny gap between the upstand of the counters and then the oven area. So I thought that was quite a useful little extra thing to include there to cover that up. So I was really pleased to be able to incorporate that. It just looks a bit nicer to me. It always bothers me whenever counters have an upstand, but I want to use an oven that doesn't have one. I'm sure lots of people have done that kind of thing before, but that's the first time I thought to do it, so I was quite pleased with how it turned out. And then I just added in a few more clutter pieces from the Home Chef Hustle pack again, as well as a coffee maker so that the kitchen area is just a bit more functional for your Sims. You may also have noticed as well, I've used the wallpaper from the Home Chef Hustle pack again. I haven't used it for quite a while now, so I felt justified in bringing it back in here. I've been trying so hard to not touch it. It probably helps as well though, to be fair, that I've been building quite a few things that really don't fit the style to have this wallpaper incorporated, like a vampire mansion or a medieval blacksmith. So things like that kind of helped me steer away from it for a bit, but it is back It's still my favourite wallpaper for tiling, so I really enjoyed that. And it does end up going into the bathroom, which is upstairs in this build as well. I also brought in quite a lot of the brick in the accents in the walls across the room, just again so it helped bring in that industrial vibe a bit more. And then to help bring in a bit of colour and differentiate from the brick, I just added in a bit of a plain wallpaper with a slight blue tint to it, which is from Eco Lifestyle. I think this one worked really well with the rug and the colours within that, so that brought in a lot of blues across the space and helped to decide the primary colour scheme for the downstairs area, with just a few splashes of red and green here and there. The green mostly gets incorporated through a lot of the plants around the room. Again, I feel like I equate industrial builds with a lot of plant life, so there's loads of greenery across the whole house, and I think that looks really nice. And honestly, it's the kind of thing I'd really like to have in my own house. Oh, and for this industrial loft kit, I just brought out the small side table and then got rid of it immediately. It really bothers me that it doesn't seem to have the same wood swatches that go with the rest of the items within it. I had a look through them all, but the woods were either way too dark or way too pale for the ones that I picked out for the rest of the assets, so that was really unfortunate. But the side table I went with in the end was just from the bowling stuff pack, which is that little triangular one that I've put between the two armchairs. I also tried to incorporate quite a lot of the base game industrial items. They usually have that glass top on them, and because of that, I generally don't like using them. I thought the glass here would help break a few parts of the other materials throughout the space out, or break them up rather. The only thing is, you'll see that I've gone for a dream home decorated coffee table instead, and that's because the metalwork on the base game industrial pieces just doesn't match the metalwork in the industrial loft kit, which is kind of a shame because that makes it quite difficult to be able to incorporate that in, because if you do get a metalwork that matches, then the wood swatch is completely off and vice versa. So I didn't really use much of the base game industrial set in this. Because of where the stairs are positioned in this building, I ended up having to take out the bottom part of it, so I opted for these more floating stairs. I think they might be, I can't remember to be honest if they're base game or not, but I use those ones quite regularly when I don't want to have the bottom part of the stairwell. Anyway, there was just a bit of an awkward space and it took me a while to work out what to put under there, so I ended up going for just a little table and then a few plants again to help bring in greenery and just to fill that space. I think I did also sneak a little backpack, one of the suitcase backpack style ones from Growing Together under there too, just as a little nod to make it look a bit more used, I suppose, as a bit of a storage space. But otherwise I did struggle with that section, but I think it came out quite well. I also really like that record player item from the Party Essentials kit. It's a bit of a weird kit, there's not much from that I actually like to use, but I do find the speakers, because there's a little wall speaker as well, which is great, and then the invisible dance floor and this item. I think they're probably my favourite items from that, but otherwise it's a bit of an odd one. I'm not really sure I'd have got it if it wasn't for those three pieces that I just really like the look of. I also added in a few of the Growing Together frames where you can put in your own photos from in-game, just across a couple of spaces within the build, including next to that bar area. I thought it would be quite a nice addition from a gameplay point of view, so I didn't fill those myself, but they are around if you wanted to play in the build and you wanted to put something from your own gameplay into the build. And if you are enjoying the video, please be sure to hit that like button, it really does help the channel. And if you're not already, please feel free to subscribe. It would really mean a lot, and let me know any thoughts that you have on future builds you'd like to see on the channel, just in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And I always like coming up with fun new styles. I do have my favourites of what I like to build, but I really enjoy branching out and trying new things as well. Just getting a big selection of different build styles is something I quite enjoy doing. I would say probably though my favourite thing to build is more magical kind of houses. I haven't done many on this channel as of yet, but before I started YouTube, that was one of the main things that I built, just because I love playing with spellcasters. But this was quite a fun one to try out, and I hadn't really built much like it before. But now we've just moved on upstairs. I've just added the pizza oven down into the garden area as well as a few lights. But I ended up putting the bathroom in this little nook off, or little bump out off to the left of the build. I did have to reduce the number of windows, but incorporated a few of those fine items from the high school years expansion pack. So I think that looks really nice from the outside still. And then it meant that I could fit in the required items for the bathroom, because originally they'd all intersect with those windows and it just didn't look very good. So this workaround ended up being quite suitable for the space, and I really liked that. I did consider making this the office before I ended up moving around the windows, but it's just so long and skinny, it didn't really work for an office particularly well, so I did end up keeping that for the slightly larger room, which I'll decorate shortly. But otherwise, I think the space looks quite nice. I ended up adding a large-ish rug from the City Living expansion pack. I included it downstairs as well, but in a different swatch. It seems a bit odd to have such a big carpet in a bathroom, but I feel like everyone has a rug for something to stand on when they get out of the shower and things, and it's really nice to have a rug under your feet while you're at the sink, just brushing your teeth, especially in winter, I find. So I didn't think it was too bad of an idea, and you can always just roll it up and mop the floor if you needed to. So I'm not sure how odd that is, but it brought a lot of colour into the space, which I liked, so I did leave it there, but I am aware it's a bit of an odd one. I brought in quite a few of the bathroom clutter pieces to this room as well, just on these open shelves. I quite like decorating bathrooms this way. In real life, I actually prefer having more closed off storage in my bathroom, but otherwise, in The Sims, I think it's quite fun to have the clutter pieces on display, so I do that quite often. And then just jumping into the bedroom, I originally thought about using the base game bed. It's an unlockable from the painting career, I believe, where it's got a couple of, I think it's Van Gogh's paintings, the Starry Night Sky, and then the sunflowers. But it just didn't feel industrial enough, so because that was one of the main inspirations for this build, I ended up going for the industrial loft kit bed. And I was really undecided on the colour swatch for a while. I just couldn't pick one that I liked, which also had the wood tone that I was going for. But this yellow one, I think worked really well in the end. I've never used this particular swatch, so it's fun to be able to incorporate it here. And it helped dictate the colour scheme for the rest of the room. And again, it's kind of adding to the primary colour scheme throughout the space, except for the greens, I suppose, but there's a lot of blue and red downstairs, and then yellow in the bedroom. The office does end up being primarily green though, so that kind of ruins the primary colour theme, but otherwise I quite enjoy having that nod to the artist career yet again. And since I used the closet from the Get Together expansion pack, I ended up using quite a few items from Eco Lifestyle across the bedroom, so the shelving unit is from there, and it went really well, I thought. And again, because it's got a lot of the metal work in it, it brought in sort of that industrial vibe that I was wanting. So that was a fun piece to be able to include. It's one of my favourite furniture items, to be honest. I really love this little shelf. The clutter pieces that are already attached onto it are just so great, and it makes me really jealous that there's a little hanging plant on there. When is the Sims team going to make us a hanging plant that is detached from any furniture pieces? I really want to be able to just grab hold of those little plants and move them wherever I want across the build, but sadly they are attached to that particular furniture piece. I bet some CC creators have made some really amazing plants. I generally try to stay away from CC for furniture just because I quite enjoy being able to share what I make on the gallery, and then using CC restricts it for console players and things, so I try to not delve into the CC realm. But let me know if you would like to see me try something with custom content one day. I'm not completely opposed, I just usually avoid it. And into the office, yet again I tried to use some of the base game industrial items, but quickly decided I didn't like them, so I picked this desk, which is from Dream Home Decorator. I did end up using the chair from base game, which has that industrial vibe, so I guess that's something. But otherwise, this desk, it felt quite in keeping with the artist and kind of creative hobbies theme that's going on, so I like that. And then there's a few bookshelves dotted around the house, but otherwise this is the main place where your Sims would have to come to be able to access any kind of reading skills. So I just added in a little beanbag from the high school years pack so that they can snuggle up next to the window and read their book. And like I said, I made this quite a green scheme. It felt a bit too green at first with the rug and with the beanbag chair, but I think the wallpaper that I ended up adding in which is similar to the ones from the bedroom, just the brick colour and then kind of a pale creamy colour. They help bring away too much green in the room, so I think that balanced it nicely. And on these bookshelves I had so much fun using the base game items with all the new swatches, so that little filing set, and then there's the stack of books called the scholarly stack, I think. I never used to use that little item because the colours of all of the books were so vibrant. It felt way too much to look at, so I'm really happy that they've got a lot more neutral tones to some of the items now. I think I'll be using those a lot more in my builds. There's actually a similar stack from the high school years pack, and I usually, ever since that pack came out, have been defaulting to picking that stack of books instead of the base game ones, but honestly I'll probably stick to the base game ones more often than not now. I absolutely love it when the Sims team do swatch updates. I just wish that they'd do it for beds next, so pretty please Sims team, can we get some more swatches for the base game beds, because they're just unusable. I don't remember the last time I used a base game bed because I hate the swatches on it so much. Or hate's a strong word, I'm just kind of sick of seeing them, so it'd be nice to have something a bit different. And I promise we're almost getting to the art room. I do just do the hallway outside of this little office space, and then I'll pop back downstairs and complete the artist's room. It was the last thing that I ended up decorating just because of the timing of the kit release and when I started building this. But the little hallway area, there's not too much to it. I just added a small little side table here and then cluttered it up with a few pieces just to add a bit of colour into the area. I also ended up covering the plant pot of this base game plant with the bin from high school years. I didn't really like the swatches in this particular build on the plant pot, so I thought that was quite a good workaround. It's something I have done before. I'm not actually sure if the bin is still usable. I assume the Sims just don't put anything in the bin there because the bin would be blocked by the hitbox of the plant, but I've never actually tested that, so I'm not certain. And then above the stairwell I ended up using a couple of, I think they're eco lifestyle lights. I did consider a few other options, but again I really liked the industrial vibe of these ones, so I popped those in there just to add a bit of interest. I do also end up editing the windows on the front of the house, so there does end up being a very skinny window just in that little nook by the stairway. And then after a final few little clutter pieces around in the office, I'm finally in the art room using all of the fun new furniture items. I really liked that the kit actually comes with some little pedestals to put still life items on. That was so much fun. And then they added in a lily item, so it's a little vase of lilies, which I think I'll just be grabbing shortly. And it's a nice little nod to the new expansion pack that should be coming out. Just the name of the item kind of refers to death and the Grim Reaper and things, and since the new expansion pack is going to be around that kind of theme, that was a fun little nod to that. I also love how all of the items in this kit come with a swatch that shows them being really dirty and paint splattered. That was so much fun to put around the room. As I said though, the room is quite small, so unfortunately I didn't manage to use everything from the kit, at least not everything I'd have liked to in this particular space, but I'll be sure to make some more artist spaces in the future to incorporate those. And now we're coming to the end of the speed build portion of this video, so if you did enjoy it, please be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already and enable notifications so you'll know when I next upload a speed build. And as before, if there's any builds you'd like to see me create on the channel, be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and let me know what you think on the 2 new kits. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.